Cali, I got the West, man. Deuce got the Crest. So, man, what they gonna do now? Got the West and the Crest together, man. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Atlanta, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Birmingham, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Oakland, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Down south, showing no shame. Got the clubs and the club, we shaking that thing. Got the young player coming up on the run down. See the girls and they too smart. Like real tight, pockets and rice. From the weekend G to the end of the night. Screw up coming out, gotta get the club high. You know how to die. Everybody wanna be down with the side. 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 Everybody trying to get down with the side. Everybody wanna be down with the side.
Welcome to the Free Lunch Podcast, home of the New South Movement. This your boy Tight, and I got BGeezy with me. BGeezy, what's happening?
Watch out now. This your boy BG, the 27 kid. Free Lunch Podcast, what's happening? We back at it. Tight.
She do it all night. She going hard right. She love the spotlight. She made that thing go drip, drop, drip, drip, D drop. Drip, drop, drip, drip, D drop.
And I couldn't believe that was a real song, man. People telling me about it. I had to go on YouTube and check it out. I can't believe that ish.
Man, that drip drop, that's number one on iTunes, man. That drip.
I believe it. I
don't know why, but
I believe it because when you start saying drip, drippity drop, everybody know you talking about that Empire show.
She going hard right. She love the spotlight. She made that thing go drip, drop, drip, drippity drop.
Hey man, is that show as good as they say it is?
Man, that's the best show out right now, hands down.
What's so good about it though? It seems like it's just following the same old script.
No, Cookie is man. I'm telling you, hottest show out right now. Right now. Man, that show is on point. You not on it?
Man, nah, I ain't on it yet. So I guess I gotta watch an episode to see what all the hoopla is.
Man, you need to get caught up because Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder, Blackish, sometime. But this Empire, this the it, boy. I'm telling you.
Empire that came in and took the top spot, huh?
Telling you, I'm surprised you're not on it. I'm surprised you don't know about that drip drop. I'm surprised you don't know about that good enough.
I'm gonna have to check it out then and see what's really going on with it.
That Keep Your Money. You don't know about that Keep Your Money?
That's another song?
Yes, dude. They got
a whole
soundtrack, huh?
Yes, Timbaland made the beats.
Well, I know I heard him on Breakfast Club talking about it and saying that he was like the musical producer for it.
This is not a game. I mean, I gave a shout out to Master people. That got to get a shout out to Hakeem and Lucius Line and the Cookie. Cookie, the hardest thing out there, man.
All right, I'm gonna take your word for it and see what's going on with it.
You watch the first 2 episodes, you're gonna be hooked. I'm telling you, guaranteed. But let me ask you this: what you been up to though?
Man, have you ever needed a vacation from your vacation?
Oh, definitely.
Because that's how I feel right now. I was on vacation last week, and I'm tired now than I was before I left. So I'm trying to recover and trying to get back into the groove of things. It's cold. That hawk is out there, so that's kind of got stuff shut down too. But other than that, man, everything is everything.
So I guess
life is good.
I guess the question is this, then, BG.
Yeah. I feel like this is an under the bus question. What's up?
No. Do we want to talk about getting people 5 or 10 minutes about the vacation, or do you want to talk about yesterday's events? Because I think you can't go wrong with either one. I think on one end we might get a little jealous. On the other end, I think it's good to bring the people in on some of the other extracurricular activities that the co-hosts of Free Lunch Podcast are doing.
Yeah, right. So
I'm gonna let you know. You pick which one you want to go with.
I don't care how you try to paint it. You can't get me. Vacation was good.
And that's all you got to say. You can tell us about the other one.
Vacation was great. We ended up in New Orleans for a little bit of Mardi Gras. Got a chance to check out the Zulu Ball for the third time. It's a must for all those that haven't had an opportunity to partake in the annual Zulu Ball, Crew of Zulu. You need to check it out. It is amazing to see thousands upon thousands of black people in formal attire having a good time and celebrating. So I highly recommend taking advantage of that. And that was pretty much it, man. Got a chance to see some family and some friends and fellowship with them. So vacation was good, but being on that road was a BITC, you know what.
Thank you for keeping it clean.
Hey, man, I'm trying to keep us from them explicit
content
Yes.
label.
Yesterday, what you want to know about yesterday?
What you do, what you tell the people.
Oh, okay. Yesterday, went back to Auburn with
Yes, heavy on nerve.
and spent some time with some of the students, the Black Student Union over there. They had me come in as a guest to just sit down and lead a panel, and I was the panel. So we just had a question and answer discussion, telling them a little bit about my time, my journey through college, after college, and allowed them the opportunity to just ask me some questions. And it was good. They had a little soul food dinner after that. The food was amazing. So shout out one time to Auburn University and to the Black Student Union. Saw some leaders, man. They got leaders. Legacy continues in terms of young people stepping up to the plate, taking on critical issues for college-aged people and students. So it looked good. It looked good. I was thoroughly impressed.
Well, I heard you met some family. I heard you met family.
What family I met? Oh, your family.
Yeah.
Met your family. She started smiling when she started talking about you, man. She said that you are quite a character. Just to be politically correct. To keep it politically correct. So, yeah, got a chance to see your cousin down there. I think she's a junior on campus. She representing the family very well.
Yeah, that's my little cousin, so I try to take care of her, and she's doing very well. So let's get into the show.
What you got for us today? What you got? You got turned up. You got melodramatic.
This is a classic. This is a throwback. It comes from a classic album. I'm kind of nervous because the tone of the song may make people think we're going in a different direction than what we're gonna go in. But I think the gist or the meaning behind the song can relate to today's topic.
Okay, you got it together.
I think so. We're gonna give it a shot.
Do it. Let's do it.
There's gonna be a little bit more singing. There's gonna be a little bit more singing on this one.
Okay.
But before I even do that, let people know that we still taking sponsors. So sponsor us, people. I mean, we pushing this thing forward. So the more listeners, the more this movement can continue. BG and I do all of this out of our own pockets. We're not getting a dollar for anyone. So continue to help sponsor this movement. Well, start and help us push the movement, but you can also sponsor different segments like the one that we're about to do, but also we get BG on this Ask BG, then we can also try to sponsor that as well. So that's all I got, man. I'm ready.
I get to him.
Every time I was in L.A., I was with my ex-girlfriend. Every time you call, I told you, baby, I'm working. I was out doing my dirt. Wasn't thinking about you getting hurt. Was hand in Beverly sounding like a man, not giving a damn who sees me. So gone, so wrong, acting like I didn't even have you sitting at home thinking about me, being the good girl that you are. But you probably believe you got a good man. A man that would never do the things I'm about to tell you I've done. Brace yourself, it ain't good. But it would be even worse if you heard this for somebody else. These are my confessions. Just when I thought I was saying all I could say. My chick on the side says she got one on the way. These are my confessions. Man, I'm thrown. I'm so gone. I don't know what to do. I guess I gotta give you part two of my confessions. If I'm gonna tell it, then I gotta tell it all. Damn near cried when I got that phone call. I'm so thrilled. I don't know what to do but to give you part 2 of my confession. That's a good one, ain't it?
Man, I don't know what the hell we going with this one.
That one don't work with that. Don't work. What we talking about?
Man, you gonna have to make it. You gonna have to make it plain. Make it clear for the people what you talking about.
Yeah, I told you the people gonna think we talking about relationships, aren't they?
Especially coming on the heels of that your favorite day.
That my favorite. That V day.
Yeah, that B day.
Yeah, that is not my favorite day. But to kind of clarify things, man, this song about what? Cheating. What we talking about today? Integrity. Cheating in the game. So just to make this thing plain and to simplify things, we're not talking about relationships today, but it's been 3 interesting stories that have been in the headlines since Super Bowl that we kind of wanted to bring to the forefront and really just talk about the American culture, talk about American greed, just talking about getting your piece of the pie as well as my piece of the pie. And the 3 stories that we want to highlight to kind of capture and really to try to bring this whole idea surrounding integrity and cheating, hence the reason I tried to do Confessions Part 2, is simple. Back during the Super Bowl or a week prior to the Super Bowl, you had this whole conspiracy around the New England Patriots and Deflategate, essentially taking some air out of the footballs to allow for easier passing, easier throwing for quarterback Tom Brady. So 11 of the 12 footballs used by the New England Patriots essentially have been deflated. And the interesting part about that, BG, I actually believe the ball boy, the person that they threw under the bus, should have been fired because it wasn't 12 out of 12, not because it was 11 out of 12. So he didn't do his job.
Well, maybe he was. Maybe that one was the one that was supposed to start the game off.
This is true. So the second story, when talking about integrity and when talking about cheating and really in what direction the American society is going, is the one of Brian Williams. I think that was the second story that kind of came out. And I don't know how much of that story people have been in tune with or people have followed, but that is a really interesting story because it's essentially taking Brian Williams, who was one of the top anchors at NBC for his nightly news, and essentially him starting in 2003 basically lying about being on a plane in Iraq that was hit by a grenade or a missile and had to have an emergency landing. So he told that story back in 2003. Fast forward to now, he had been telling that story on one of the late night TV shows, and it was so far-fetched, and he was getting so much attention from telling that story that it was brought to the attention that he essentially was lying, and so much so that he did a public apology on NBC Nightly News. NBC eventually suspended him for 6 months without pay. So this is the head anchor guy that essentially replaced Tom Brokaw, a show that I kind of watched growing up when I was into the news and politics, and I kind of watch more cable news now. But Brian Williams being that second story centered around integrity and playing the game right. And then this last story, more or less in our community, for those listeners that listen to the podcast, that of the Jackie Robinson Little League baseball team out of Chicago that essentially was recently stripped of the Little League World Series title that they won during this past summer, simply because it was determined by the Little League World Series that the parents for those young people basically reorganized or redistributed the the lines or the district lines to have a lot of the top players in the same region so that they can qualify to be on the same baseball team together. So you have those three stories. For that last one, you have those that disagree with that one. So more or less, you have the Jackie Robinson story, you have the Brian Williams story, and you have Deflategate. So, BG, I guess the question or the topic for today's podcast is essentially going to be around integrity or the lack thereof in regards to integrity, and then kind of take off from there and talk about the American pie, more or less, or American greed and how American culture and American society is really shaping this idea of if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying kind of concept.
And that Brian Williams, when going back to your intro, that Brian Williams one was a big one, man. That was a big shocker to know that he'd been riding with that, with that lie for so long on that platform. But
that was one of two he had told. Remember the story?
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about the one where he basically told the story during Katrina that him and his crew was staying in the French Quarter, and he basically got on there and said that he had saw a dead body floating down in the French Quarter.
Right.
Well, the local police and the local administration, they kind of checked that story because they were saying that there was not even any flooding in the French Quarter area. So they saw some kind of inconsistencies in that particular story. So not really to interrupt you from talking about the Iraq story in regards to Brian Williams, but also talking about the Katrina story in which he was he was basically inconsistent with some of the statements surrounding flooding in the French Quarter.
So yeah, and so if he's doing that type of stuff at the level that he's on, you got to know that there are probably journalists everywhere doing some of the same things to try to build and pad their careers. I guess if we just kind of expound upon that, we're seeing a lot of different areas in society, how people are basically lying or beating the system or manipulating certain things to heighten their careers, to gain more acclaim, to become famous, and all of those type of things. And so, in me sitting on this side of it, being an observer of all these stories that are coming out, it does raise the question of where is the integrity? Like, where does it stop to where people put more value in being truthful and honest and being real about their presentation versus doing whatever it takes to win, or doing whatever it takes to get on, to be at the top of the game. But we see it. We see it so much that in this competitive society where everybody wants to be the best, there's so much pressure in certain arenas to be the best that people are willing to go to extremes and put their careers and their credibility on the line just in the name of seeking success. And so we'll be able to have a good conversation, good dialogue around this, and how much these stories affect our global community.
So let's get right into it then, because you have sports. So we talked about essentially a professional who actually are the Super Bowl champs. New England Patriots. Shout out to Lori. Shout out to Elrod.
Elrod.
Yeah, you got the New England Patriots Super Bowl champs, but some tend to believe that should be an asterisk by it. You have the multiple story of professional athletes doing steroids and performance enhancing drugs. You have this Little League story that I just talked about, and that's more or less around the parents rezoning so that the star players can be on the same team so they compete for a championship. you have another industry in Brian Williams and news anchoring. So I guess the question really is this what American culture is teaching us as individuals? When I think about the American pie, there used to be a story where the American dream, and President Obama talks about the American dream in one of his greatest speeches and during one of the presidential Democratic nominations. And then Miss Obama tells the story of her dad, and these are great American dream stories. And you hear about the middle class family that started their own small business, now has grown to make a lot of money. But then you look up nowadays, it seems like that when you're trying to live that American dream, you're trying to get a piece of the American pie. More or less, others are not only trying to get their piece of the American pie, but they're reaching over into my piece of the pie as well, which turns into greed. So I guess more or less what I'm asking is where is this type of if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying mindset really being birthed? And is this the new American way, the new American way and the new American culture that now you have to cheat a little to be successful?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything new. Once again, I think this is just a representation of how the global distance is being shortened by, media, the internet, television, radio, and all those type of things. And so we're just seeing more and more examples of this stuff now versus in the past. Some of the same things were likely going on. We just didn't know about them as the general public. I think the ultimate for most of us in our day-to-day lives is to achieve success. We want to get to that place of where we have accomplished certain goals, whether it be championships in athletics, whether it be money at our jobs, whether it be political office for politicians, because we also see some forms of cheating in that area as well. But this road to success, in its perfect sense, is a long road. Usually you have to put in a large amount of hours. You got to put in a certain amount of sacrifices and all that type of thing. So oftentimes to get to that point of achievement, it takes a long, drawn out, tedious process to get there. But in the way that our system and our psyches are set up, we want to have as much success as we can, as fast as we can. And I think that's where this whole thing of cheating and beating the system comes in, because it's a shortcut. By cheating, by using a performance enhancing drug, it gets you stronger, it gets you more powerful quicker than it does going to the gym and lifting weights. If I can get all the best guys, if I can do a, rezoning and get all the best boys at one point in time, then I can build a super team quicker than it may take for me to just happen to come across a group of kids that are the same age at the same time to play on the team. So this drive for success and a lot of success in a short period of time, I think, is what really breeds that. But I don't think that it's anything new. I think this country was built on shortcuts and taking advantage and manipulation. And I think it is powered. It is steamed by those same principles. So for me personally, I don't think it's anything new.
You bring up a good point, though, BG, and it's actually going to kind of shift directions in the direction that I was originally heading in, because you bring up this idea of success. Because in a sense, success has become exactly what you described, right? It's become this idea of winning championships. It become this idea of making the most money, having the prettiest girls, the flashy lights, etc. At what point do we, as human beings, give up this idea of happiness and joy to pursue this idea of success? And the reason I bring that up is because I remember there was a sign that used to be up on one of the signs that they would change weekly. in Mobile, and it was essentially saying that success is an aptitude. And I remember that sign because I don't know why I remember it, but it was one that I just kept it as a memory, just saying, what does that mean? And it was just talking about the higher you go, the more successful you become. But then I kind of changed my personal definition of success more or less around John Wooden's, how he described in his definition of success. And I kind of want to read that for the podcast because I essentially want to take the rest of the conversation and really talk about why has success become the driver, America's definition of success become the driver and who we are as human beings versus John Wooden's definition of success. And John Wooden's definition of success, which I kind of subscribed to once I read it, who is also the winningest coach in college basketball, is success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you did your best to become the best you are capable of becoming. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you did your best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. And I say that particular definition because if you look at Brian Williams, if you look at the Flakegate, if you look at the parents of the Jackie Robinson Little League team, essentially you can look at the referee in the NBA that was cheating, and basically any scenario where they were tainted with integrity of the game or integrity of their particular career. Why can't we just become the best at who we are and be satisfied with it?
But see, peace of mind don't pay no bills. Peace of mind don't get you, stuff. It don't get you material things. It don't get you the fame. So as long as those type of entities are at the top of our priority list, stuff and external things, those things prevent us from seeing that internal gift or that internal form of success, to where you say, okay, I'm just good with having this peace of mind and knowing that I did the right thing, knowing that I'm living a righteous life. See, those type of things, you don't get a lot of applause or recognition for those things. And so, it's hard for people to really put a lot of value on that because this system in our society and everything that surrounds us says that our value is placed on external things. Our value is made up of how much money that we make and what type of clothes that we wear.
System, though, it's a broken system because it actually, if you think about what you just said, that system begins in elementary school. Mm-hmm. We go through weeks and weeks of school, months of school or weeks, and after each, however many weeks, we get a report card, and you're given A, B, C, D, E, or F. I think we had F's versus E's. But you get one of those characters, and you're basically told that this is the best you are. Why? If that's the best that person's doing, why do we? I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it just seems like from the beginning we're taught to want more. And maybe that wasn't a good example because I think you should want to do the best to do the best that you're capable of becoming. But if you're also penalized if you did the best that you're becoming, then you're going to look for ultimate means to get a better result, right? And that's cheating.
Cheating. You're going to cheat that. Like, you brought up the school example, I can remember a time to where, I was in a class and it was a health class. And we had taken the test and all that type of stuff. And, when you finish, you put your paper on the teacher's desk and you go on to the next class. And so the teacher graded the paper. 2 days later, she came back, she giving out the grades. And I come back, I got like a 66 on the test. And I'm like, I know the hell that ain't right because I studied, I knew all the answers on the test. And it just so happened that the teacher was in tune to the kind of the previous work that I was going on, that she thought enough to ask me about the paper. And what had happened was that one of the other students had basically changed the name on tests. She had put my name on her test and had put her name on my test. So she ended up with an A and I ended up with the 66. But thankfully enough, I just had a teacher that was paying attention. So like you say, those marks, those outside things, our value is based on what type of grade you have. Or what type of marks that you get versus, okay, well, let's just measure like what type of effort that you actually put into to your studying. Are you having any difficulties? You know, I'm not going to look at what grades you have, but I'm going to look at how well you actually understand this information. And if you don't get it fully, I'm going to make provisions to make sure that you understand it. But I think that the thing that we've grown up in is an ongoing trap, and it's an ongoing form of bondage because it binds us to these other types of measures that really don't matter.
It does, but it also, if you look at it from that teacher's perspective, she's put in a bind because she has to meet a mark that may not even be realistic. So she may be teaching in a community where the focus needs to be on improving the welfare of these kids, but now she's put into a place where she needs to figure out how to raise that score regardless of how much they retain so that she can keep her job. Or if you even take it to modern day business, rather than doing quality work or what have you, or figuring out how to do the best job, people get put into these unrealistic schedules or get put in these unrealistic situations to where the only way that they can meet that mark is to have a performance enhancing drug, whatever that may be, whether it's steroids or whether it's lying on the job, i.e. Brian Williams, or whether it's fidgeting the numbers in the book, i.e. end runs or what have you, to get an upper hand, manipulating
the system. So, you know, I think because of that, because it's so heavily embedded in our conscious at this stage in the game, that cheating and this manipulation of rules and all that type of stuff will forever exist, because it's going to hard to break man as a whole from being guided by those objective measures. And so as long as those things going to be in place and on our jobs, and as long as our supervisors are being forced to present a certain type of number or a certain type of efficiency percentage, there will always be these little methods and these little tricks to pad the numbers to make things at least appear to be up to par. But I think for each person as an individual, we have to put this code of ethics and this integrity thing forward. I think that makes for a better community, because then you have people that are looking at, well, what is in the best interest of this place that I live in? And you get more of a sustained product out of that. And we see that, because when you cheat, at some point, your cheating comes to an end. You talked about end run, it failed. If you want to talk about the Jackie Robinson team, which I hated to see that, and I hated to see that happen to the kids and that level of embarrassment, but that's kind of the end result, because you've got people that are always kind of observing the game, and they're waiting on somebody to slip up so that they can take advantage of it, blow the whistle on that group so they can get that spot, even though they might have a history of cheating. They just waiting on somebody else to get caught up so they can get that place and that position. So I think in terms of sustainability, you've always got to rely on those things that are foundational: honesty, truth, integrity, high standards, and value. But as long as those things avoid, you're going to have a shaky product that ain't going to be worth much for a long period of time.
Why like I'm reminded of, actually, I heard this from from two leaders that I truly respect. It was interesting because it was actually a husband and wife combination talking, and the wife kind of reminded the husband of something, I guess, that the husband normally says, and that's sometimes people are just better, or sometimes people are just smarter. Why can't this be okay? If somebody's better than you, they're just better than you. But as long as you went in every day to become the best person that you become, that's okay.
That's a hard ticket to sell. You have to be a very humble and secure individual to be able to look at it and say, he got me today. He was better than me. I'll take this L because this person just flat out did better work. Like, you've got to be at a very comfortable place and a realistic place to see that.
Why do we have such a big issue with that in our society, though? Like, why is it that people can't just come to the realization, and this may be another horrible example, but Michael Jordan is the best. Or if you're playing a game and someone beats you, why I guess the answer is ego, but as long as you did the best that you're capable of becoming, why can't that be okay? Even in school, if you go to school and you know you worked your butt off and you get a C, why can't that just be okay?
Because the people that are in the position to, applaud you and lift you up and to recognize you for your achievement, they're not gonna recognize you for being a C student. There ain't no glory in being second place. So we want that top spot. We want that top spot, and then of course some of us have a certain degree of entitlement that we feel like in our own minds we are the best. We should never come in second. And so if you come into the game with that frame of mind, one or two things is going to happen. One, you're going to complain about how somebody else gave that person the top spot and you were done wrong about it, so forth and so on and all that. Or the second thing is going to be you're going to look at it and say, yeah, he did the work, he put in the time, he performed better. I got to go back to the drawing board and improve my skills so that when we come back to this place again, I'm going to shine. I guess the determining factor between which one of those routes you take speaks to what you have in your core, what type of soul you have, and what type of guidance and experiences that you have had to lead you up to that point. If you've had somebody or you've had some experiences that have taught you about what gratification really means and how sometimes gratification is delayed and how sometimes your achievement is based off of the effort that you put in on the front end. If you've had people to tell you that and instill that in you, then you can see this type of thing. You can admit to being beat out because somebody did better. But if you've been babied and you've been told you were great when you really weren't great, or you've been given this sense of entitlement even when you haven't earned it, then you're going to pout about it and be mad and feel like somebody did you wrong. And I think that spirit and that void and that lack of that type of approach is what leads people to cheat, because they know that they want to get to this spot, and they also may even know that they ain't got the skills to do it outright. So we got to beat the game and get this added advantage in order to achieve the desired goal. Some of this also speaks to kind of where you come from. We always talk about being products of your environment. So where you come from, what type of things have been instilled in you from the time that you get on this earth.
I'm actually reminded of the Great Debater, and I don't know if you can remember that particular movie, but there's a scene on that movie in which Denzel Washington is teaching the students how to speak loud and louder, and he basically has them repeating this saying that says, "Who is the judge? God is the judge." And basically, I'll look it up. I'll look it up here in a second. But basically, the point was that, like I'm not competing against anyone but myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes the game of golf so well, and that's when they talk about mental capacity, is because at the end of the day, I am my competition. It's not the person to the left of me, it's not the person to the right of me, the person in front of me or behind me. And until we can implement that thought process and we can go in and day out, because I even find myself getting pulled into this whole idea of competition where I'm competing for something that's not even a competition. And I'm like, why am I competing against this person? Or why am I even in this whole, don't pull myself in this whole type of mindset when I'm my competition? You know what I mean? And when I say competing against this other person, I'm talking about from a career perspective, right? I'm talking about from a success, saying that you need X amount of dollars or you need X amount of this or that to be considered successful. And so at the end of the day, that's not even what the race is about. The race is not about trying to make this X amount of dollars. To me, or what the race really should be about is fulfilling your ultimate calling and your ultimate purpose.
We should always remember, though, that when we talk about these different entities, like the corporate world, the world of sports, education, all of these things are man-made institutions. So with that being said, is that like man at some point decided what mattered, what was of value, what was not of value. So when we come into these places, those are going to be the guidelines that are going to be set. Your value is going to be determined by how much money you make, what title and what position you have in this corporation. And the goal is what you're saying is to kind of get to that spiritual and that internal place to where you say, okay, well, I'm going to take control of my destiny. These are the things that I have set out for myself. This is what I want to do for myself, and see yourself as the competition and nobody else. And when you listen to a lot of stories about successful people and entrepreneurs, and when you even hear them talk in interviews, somebody might ask them the question, well, how do you feel about this other person that's in the same field as you are, that's your competition? And they'll always come back with something like, I don't see them. I'm my only competition. I only worry about what I can control, type of thing. And that gives you a certain degree of focus that you can keep your mind on your business and maximizing your full potential instead of putting excessive amounts of energy into trying to keep up with the next person. And it also keeps you from that urge to, okay, well, I got to cheat to keep up. You just focus on making yourself the best that you can be.
Who is the judge? The judge is God. Why is he God? Because he decides whether I win or lose, not my opponent. Who is your opponent? He doesn't exist. Why doesn't he exist? Because he is just a mere distinct voice to the truth I speak. So basically, you know, and I'll start, I guess I'll be in my summary. You know, you look at the Brian Williams, you look at the Deflategate, you look at the parents of the Jackie Robinson Little League team, because I don't even want to put that on the kids. And essentially, I think we need to revert back to this quote or to this definition of what John Wooden said. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you did your best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. We are competing. We don't have an opponent. At the end of the day, your higher power, or your whomever it is that whoever it is you worship or what have you, is the ultimate judge. So I think we really, as a society and as a culture, if we're talking about having a movement, I think we really need to reevaluate this idea of integrity, this idea of American greed, this idea of cheating, and really just reevaluate what the ultimate purpose and what the ultimate moral, ethical values are. Because at the end of the day, as long as you do the best that you're capable of doing, I think that's all we can add, and not getting so caught up or buying into what society has currently labeled success to be, whether it be materialistic, whether it be position that you hold, but more or less this idea centered around just being the best that you could become.
And for me, this whole New South movement and the Black empowerment movement and all of these things are really focusing on a shift in the paradigm from the patterns that have been set forth before us up to now. And really, with this conversation and all of the conversations that we've had before it, the objective is just to, revolutionize our thoughts and our minds to get to a point to where we're creating a new standard, not only for us in this present time, but for, the generations to come behind us. Because what we're seeing is that the stuff that we've learned, or the stuff that society attempts to program us with, is stuff that doesn't necessarily build us up, but it keeps us trapped. And in a worst case scenario, it kills us. So we know that there is longevity in those things that you talked about, high values and integrity and taking pride and having some sense of ethics and playing by a certain type of code that, will put us in a place of high esteem and put us in a place to where, we don't feel so much pressure to be cutthroat and to be backstabbers and to be manipulators of the system. We've seen that game before. And what we want to do is we want to transcend higher than that and get to a place to where we can live in peace, not only as a collective, but have a certain peace of mind to know that we've done the best that we could do. We've done right by those people beside us, and the work that we've put forth has been work of high value and high integrity, and we've gone by a certain moral code. And I think with that comes a reduction in a lot of the drama that we see. It comes a reduction in a lot of the violence and a lot of the other things that ail our communities, because all of those things to some degree are born out of this greed and this desire to be better than the next man and being in competition with the next person. So for me, if I could have the family take anything from it, it's just to let's live by a code that is meaningful, that is full of substance, and that is as full of high ethical value that, that we can be proud and passing on to the generations that will come after us.
Great summary of what the movement is all about and what we're trying to do. So that's all I got, man. That really was that. It kind of went in a different direction, but I think at the end of the day, it was a conversation centered around truth, and it was a conversation centered around really breaking old traditions and old mindsets and looking at archaic systems, the educational system, looking at archaic ways of thinking, and really just reevaluating where we're headed as a generation, and being bridge builders for the millenniums that are coming after us.
Can't cheat the game forever, that's for sure, and we see that to be true. So, I would much rather be on the side of right and righteousness than to be on the side of, cutthroat, failure, and disappointment any day.
Right. I hope people take something from this one, and I'm gonna stop talking. But it's conversations like this that that really just sparked my interest, BG, and it's because I just feel like we as a culture are so far from reality, or so far from authenticity, I guess is the right word I'm looking for. And I just really hope that we can really spark this idea of being authentic and being true and really getting back to the essence of who we are as a soul. It really does. I really have a spot in my heart for that. So I don't know.
It's a new thing because all of the stuff that we get told on a day-to-day basis, like everything that we get exposed to, whether it be on our jobs dealing with individuals, whether it be in the technology realm or whatever, everything that we get is built on a fake life, a facade, all of these images that are not necessarily genuine and authentic images. So to come here and talk about it is what makes this a haven for some of this unorthodox, rare type of discussion. And that's why we're encouraging, people to participate and come aboard, because this is a place to where you're going to be able to, get something different from and also contribute something different to in an arena, in a form that you won't be judged, where you will actually be in a place where people feel the same way that you feel. And so this is the uniqueness of the Free Lunch podcast, is because we have created this space to allow these type of conversations built around truth and authenticity to come to the forefront and not be some taboo discussion. And I think we need more of that, and that needs to become a part of our common and our day-to-day vernacular and our belief patterns.
It needs to be the new norm. It needs to be the new norm.
And I think we can do that as more people start to see that there are other people in all parts of the country and all parts of the world that care about this kind of stuff, because oftentimes myself personally get kind of discouraged by the fact of there's so many more people talking about, the Kardashians and Amber Rose, and not to throw shade on them, but there's so much more energy going to those things versus like, how can we look within and make ourselves as individuals better?
Yes, and that's exactly what this platform is doing, and it's only, like you said, there are a small few platforms that are having authentic, genuine conversations, even to the point to where we're willing to put things about ourselves out there that others may not be willing to do. And I'm okay with that, because if that's going to allow the individual to prepare them to live their truth, or going to prepare them to become more genuine and authentic in their everyday walk, then I'm okay with that. But I really feel like these are the type of conversations that need to become the new norm, and it really is sickening when the new norm is essentially what you just said earlier. And again, it's not to throw shade, but it's to really say the lack of quality and the lack of substance that's been taken in. And so I really, really, really encourage the listeners. I really, really, really encourage just anyone that hears this podcast to subscribe, to forward it, to become a weekly and a consistent listener, because we really have some conversation. There really some great dialogue that's taking place, and it's dialogue that you're not getting a lot of on a weekly basis. So just continue to listen and continue to subscribe and to continue to find ways to participate. If you have ideas, let us know. I'm trying to push BG to add the Ask BG to the podcast. It's a great idea. It's really building a network and a family of people to push a movement forward. It's the home of the New South movement is genuine. It's pushing our ideas to a larger market, and everybody needs to be a part of that.
Yeah, so with that said, we just want you to be a part and participate. And you can do that by checking us out, freelunchpodcast.com, for blogs and podcasts. You can also, if you've got suggestions for future shows, or you want to give us some feedback on the shows that you've already listened to, you can hit us up on Twitter, FreelunchPodC, as well as on Instagram, Free Lunch Podcast.
And I'm not going to finish us out with that song, Confessions, because that was, it started off really trying to be the theme around just this idea of cheating. But I do want to leave us with that quote again from the Great Debaters, where it says, "Who is the judge? The judge is God. Why is he God? Because he decides whether I win or lose, not my opponent. Who is your opponent? He doesn't exist. Why does he not exist? Because he is just a mere dissenting voice to the truth that I speak." So at the end of the day, when we talk about integrity and we talk about living your truth and honesty and being genuine and authentic, we're talking about being true to thine own self. And at the end of the day, that's all we can ask for, and that's who we are at Free Lunch Podcast. So Free Lunch Podcast, home of the New South Movement, and we out.
Out of here.